It started by accident. I caught my husband with my best friend. Money was a huge issue, so I had my assistant pull the company records and asset reports. What the files showed was brutal. After my dad's stroke a year ago and handing the business over to Daniel Hart, the company started hemorrhaging cash. Even worse, Daniel didn't have any valuable assets under his name. In short, Daniel wasn't just letting the company fail, he'd been quietly moving assets out from under us. It was a blazing hot day and I felt like I'd been slapped with an ice bucket. Daniel, what a wolf in sheep's clothing. What else had he been up to behind my back? I wanted to go through everything, line by line, every single transaction. So I spent a lot of money and hired a private investigator. The PI came back to me with pity in his eyes and said, "Mrs. Hart, I tracked down the doctor who treated your daughter. He asked me to apologize on his behalf. He didn't tell you the whole truth. Lily didn't die from a sudden illness. She was already dead when she was brought in, based on the timeline. At least 12 hours were lost from symptom onset to hospital admission." For a moment, I just froze. My brain went blank. I rushed home from the hospital and pulled the home security footage. Since Lily was born, I'd had cameras around the house. The system keeps recordings for 3 years. Before this, I always assumed Lily's death was a tragic accident. I'd never even checked the footage. Now I watched the video. 3-year-old Lily burning with fever, crying and convulsing in her little bed, slowly going quiet and then nothing, gone. And just one wall away, the master bedroom footage showed Daniel and Claire in bed together, wrapped up with each other. Lily hadn't died from a natural, unavoidable cause. She died because treatment was delayed. Daniel and Claire had let it happen. My face went pale. I swore right then I would make those to pay, blood for blood. I wanted them to pay with their lives. And of course, over the past year, Claire suddenly moved into a new villa. If Daniel didn't fund that place, I'll eat my words. I pulled out my phone and dug a number out of my blacklist. He's a professional pretty boy, basically a gigolo who toys with rich women and squeezes money out of them. He'd tried to hit on me once before, but I'd seen through him. I called him up and hired that smooth-faced charmer. He's exactly the kind Claire likes. With his skills, he'd squeeze every last cent out of her. By the time Daniel came home, I'd calmed down. I could even play the part of the sweet, dutiful wife. Only I knew how much I wanted to strangle him when I looked at his face. Daniel stumbled in drunk, collapsing on the couch with a flushed face. "Where've you been off to? No dinner? What kind of wife do you think you are, sitting around doing nothing while the rest of us work?" He grumbled. I didn't argue. I told him casually that the home cameras had been acting up and I'd hired someone to fix them. Then I stared straight at him. Watching his reaction, of course he got nervous. He sat bolt upright and wiped a sweat from his brow. "Is it serious? Are they checking the footage?" he asked. Was he worried I'd seen the evidence? I watched the cold sweat bead at his temple and felt a small, bitter satisfaction. I slowed my reply. "Who has time for that? Lily's memorial is coming up. I've got a ton to do." He relaxed and snapped irritably. "You should pay more attention. The Hart family's waiting for a grandson. You know how long is this going to take?" Then he grumbled and flopped back down. Falling asleep, my heart sank. Look at this man, this father. How can he speak like that? No concern for our dead daughter, but thinking only of grandchildren. Lily's death was a mockery. I walked to the bathroom, looked at the woman with red-rimmed eyes in the mirror and thought, so what if I become a monster? I'll avenge my daughter. Sometime in the middle of the night, I heard furtive noises and opened my eyes. Sure enough, he couldn't sit still, sneaking off to check the cameras. But I'd already set everything up. He wouldn't find anything. When he came back and tried to pull me into his arms, I pretended to be asleep, turned my back and avoided him. "Don't even think about touching me, I find you filthy." That morning, the doorbell rang, an uninvited guest. When I opened the door, Daniel's sister, Yvonne Hart, practically barged in. She dyed her hair some sickly half green, half blue, had garish makeup that muddled her features, ripped jeans and a messy outfit, a total street brat. She flopped onto the couch like she owned the place and started helping herself to the grapes on the coffee table. "Sis," she complained between bites, "you promised to hook me up with a producer so I can try out for a show. How long do I have to wait?" Then she flung grape juice everywhere. The hearts, no matter how long they live in the city, never lose that tacky, rough edge. I felt sick to my stomach. "Producers are busy," I said. Yvonne didn't take that. She shot me a glare. "You promised me." "I don't care, you have to get this done for me, or I'll get my brother to." The moment she said it, I got alert. Get your brother to what? Beat me up? Divorce me? She already knew about Daniel's affair, of course she did. All this scheming, hiding things from me. The Hart family really thought they could play me. Yvonne saw my face and switched tactics. "Maybe you didn't give me enough money. Your brothers made so much for the company. Just give me a little. It won't even matter to you." This niece of mine had come to live with Daniel and me at 16. Now she's 22 and still lazy as hell, daydreaming about fame. I forced a small smile. "Of course, I treat you like my own sister. I'll make arrangements. It's just that your brother has been hiding cash, and I'm a little short at the moment." Yvonne's eyes lit up. "No problem. Just wait." She agreed without thinking twice. Typical selfish, calculating family. They never spare their own. I decided then I'd strip Daniel of everything, inside and out, and send him to hell. After Yvonne left, I got dressed and put on makeup to head out. That afternoon, I met my supposed friend for coffee. She looked radiant in an expensive dress and carried a new designer bag, same brand as before. When she caught me staring, smugness flashed across her face and she started showing off. "My boyfriend got this for me. I told him not to." "It's so boring to keep getting bags," she cooed. I smiled thinly. Claire's mysterious boyfriend had existed for a long time. She'd never let me meet him. Wasn't that odd? Now, thinking back, it all lined up with the surveillance dates. I played along with the usual polite jealousy. "He's so good to you. How long have you two been together? When can I meet him?" She fumbled an answer. "About 2, maybe 3 years. He's busy with business, not much free time." 2 to 3 years, that matched the camera timestamps exactly. I gave her some advice. Don't let a good man slip away. Hold on tight. Then Claire and Yvonne shared a secretive smile. Claire lowered her voice and said, "Actually, I think I've got him. I'm pregnant." Hearing that, a cold jolt ran through me. I forced my face to stay calm while I watched Claire study my reaction like she was measuring it. "You two cheaters, you even managed to make a baby together." My fury boiled over. I kept my expression steady, fingers clenched under the table. "Well then, congrats. Having a child should make him marry you. That's the safe bet for a woman." "You think so?" Claire brightened. I replied, "Of course, any man values his kids. Even if he doesn't care about you, his family will. You're set." Claire gave me a pitying look. "Yeah, his family's always wanted kids." What a shame. She left the rest and said she was reveling in my pain. Watching me become the toy they played with felt good for them, didn't it? Don't get comfortable. The storm I planned was already on its way. Our little reunion was just tea, phones, and chit-chat. Soon Claire started texting nonstop, that goofy, in-love smile spreading across her face. That told me the pretty boy I'd hired had started working his angle. On the drive back, I called the pretty boy. He and Claire had already moved fast. They'd slept together weeks ago. I told him to start playing the part. Act like the company's cash flow was collapsing. Complain to Claire now and then about money. And when the moment was right, ask her for cash. Of course, Claire didn't really have money of her own. Her comfortable life depended on Daniel. She'd beg him for money in the name of love. Yvonne moved quickly, while Daniel was out. She came by with a bank book and the balance was nothing to sneeze at. Turns out Daniel had been siphoning money for years. This was one of the piles he'd stashed away. I tossed the passbook back to her. "Don't worry, I've got this," I said. Yvonne's eyes lit up, and she warned me, "Sis, don't tell anyone. I took this from Mom. If my brother finds out, he'll kill me." Exactly what I wanted to hear. This mustn't get back to Daniel. Keeping Yvonne in my pocket was the safest play. Why don't you lay low for a bit? I'll sign you up for some classes, get you trained. When you become a star, your brother will be over the moon. Why would he care about this then? The idea of becoming a star shut Yvonne right up. She'd do anything for that. I shipped her out of town and put a random drama student on training duty. Honestly, with her looks, she's delusional, but she served the purpose. The bait was set. Now we waited for the fish to bite. I wasn't idle either. I knew Claire's online handle, so I bought a fake rich, beautiful girl account from a reseller, one of those old, well-run profiles full of travel pics and designer bags. It looked legit. I'd been monitoring Claire quietly. After a bit of patient watching, I saw her post a plea in a relationship forum. She asked what to do when a friend discovered her boyfriend was actually married after she got pregnant. A bunch of people told her to get rid of the kid and leave the man. But I knew that wasn't the answer she wanted. She'd never give up Daniel's money. Her appetite had been fattened long ago. Otherwise, Claire would have dumped Daniel when she fell for the pretty boy. I forced myself to comment, "You're a victim too. I went through the same thing, but now I'm happy and my family's fine." Of course, my post caught her eye. She checked my profile and slid into my DMs. "You said you went through something like this. What happened?" she asked. Eager, I lied. Spun a story about forcing an affair partner's wife to divorce, painting myself as the woman who made the man choose. She ate it up, begging to know how I did it. I had leverage. I told her, if he didn't marry me, his whole career would be finished. Then I tossed in a few pregnancy tips to deepen the trust. Claire's no fool, she understood the hint. Lily's anniversary came around. And of course, Daniel had completely forgotten. No matter, I went to the cemetery by myself to mourn. If Lily could see the person who helped kill her coming to visit, she would not be pleased. I stood in front of the cold headstone and stared at her black and white photo until my tears fell. Lily's face and laugh felt so vivid, like she was right there. I reached out and brushed my fingers over the stone and made a vow. "Lily, Mom didn't protect you back then. Don't blame me. I'll make them pay." That same day, I got a call from the fertility clinic. They wanted me and my husband to come pick up the test results. I thought about it and decided to go alone. My mother-in-law had been pushing me to get checked. Ever since Lily died, I hadn't been able to get pregnant, and she liked to shame me for it. Part of it was Daniel's infidelity, of course, but maybe the grief had left me with lingering health problems too. The doctor ushered me into his office and I asked right away, "Is it my problem?" He shook his head. "The report shows the issue is with your husband. It's not you." I froze. "But 5 years ago, I did get pregnant." I started, the doctor explained. "There are many factors: environment, lifestyle, any of those can affect fertility." He didn't have to spell it out. I could hear what he meant. Daniel's wild life outside our marriage had damaged his fertility. I sat in the car with the report in my hands, stunned. If the problem is with Daniel, then how is Claire pregnant? The answer was obvious: that baby wasn't his. I laughed out loud, leaning on the steering wheel. Karma's a wheel, cheaters get cheated on. Daniel finally got green-eyed. The laughter turned to tears. Maybe Lily's congenital issues were connected to him too. "Daniel, you ruined both our lives." I wiped my face and took the report home. When I walked in, my in-laws were sitting on the couch like judges waiting to pass sentence. Of course, the criminal was me. I put on my slippers without caring. Seeing them made my stomach turn. My father-in-law barked, "Sasha, what kind of attitude is that? How dare you talk to your elders like that?" My mother-in-law was even worse, dripping with sarcasm. "A hen that can't lay eggs and thinks she's something special. Your brother's been spoiling you. You act like you're some heiress. Listen, you belong to our Hart family. You need to be taught a lesson so you know your place." Hen that can't lay eggs? Those insults just slipped out of their mouths so easily. I had been willing to give them face before. Not anymore. "You're heartless. Don't expect me to be merciful." I slapped the fertility report down on the table. My mother-in-law's face changed instantly. "Who are you showing that to?" she snapped. I smiled coldly. "Mother-in-law, the clinic's report is out. It's your son who has the fertility problem, not me. That hit them like a bucket of ice. They turned pale and started rifling through the paperwork. Watching their flustered panic felt almost vindicating. They can't even read carefully. They're too rattled to make sense of it. I walked toward my room as enraged shouting spilled from the living room. This means the heartline is dying out. My father-in-law roared. I tuned it all out. My phone buzzed. The pretty boy texted, "Done." I opened my laptop and logged into the forum. My private messages were full of Claire. She'd clearly taken me as a lifeline. Perfect. Time to give her a big gift. Claire messaged that she'd secured her leverage and, with the baby, was ready to confront the man. I encouraged her to act fast. A child can't wait. When the kid grows up, identity matters. With a baby and proof, the man would have no choice but to divorce. She thanked me over and over, calling me understanding and promising to take me out to dinner. She even said I was better than her friends. I closed the laptop with no expression. Friend? Don't make me laugh. The trust I once had for her now makes me nauseous. I opened the window and let the cold wind clear my head. I stayed in my room because I knew the living room would erupt when Daniel came home. Sure enough, the door opened and the yelling began. My mother-in-law's insults, my father-in-law's bitter disappointment. Why did we have such a useless child? The heartline will die with us. I couldn't help but smile inwardly. Now who's hit harder? Daniel himself. He understands the doctor's report. If his fertility is the issue, then Claire's baby can't be his. He must be losing his composure right about now. I waited until the noise outside calmed down a little, then grabbed my suitcase and left. Daniel's face was predictably awful, but he had his parents to deal with, so there was no way he could storm off to Claire's right away. To be magnanimous, or at least to keep my plan intact, I decided to stay away a few days and let him handle the mess he'd made. When he saw me getting ready to leave, he blurted, "Where are you going?" I shook my head, trying to look disappointed. "Let's give each other some space. I'll go stay with my parents for a few days. We'll talk later." I didn't say the rest, but Daniel is not stupid. He could read between the lines. He knew I still wanted children. If I could still have a baby, why wouldn't I find someone else? And he certainly wouldn't dare push for a divorce now. He'd been stalling because the company wasn't emptied out yet. If we divorced and an audit came, everything he'd been hiding would be exposed. At least for the moment, he couldn't get a divorce. He fumbled to stop me, pleading, but I'd made up my mind. My mother-in-law screamed and spat insults from behind. We both knew the script. I'm a bad daughter-in-law. I'm worthless, etc. I'd become numb to that. Let Claire be their daughter-in-law. Let them fight it out. Daniel offered to drive me, but I refused. I went home and waited. I'd had the house cameras upgraded to remote monitoring right after I left. Daniel walked out. I knew exactly where he was headed. Claire's. What man could stand being cheated on? I wonder how he felt wearing the green hat I metaphorically put on him. Of course, I wouldn't miss the show. I'd had a bug planted on Daniel. The same tech guy who installed the cameras knew what he was doing and set everything up cleanly. He wired the audio feed straight to my phone. I heard the car stop, then the front door open. Inside, Claire didn't notice anything amiss. She went gooey and sweet. "Baby, you're home." Daniel's voice sounded normal on the feed at first. Claire couldn't keep still. She launched into baby talk and started asking for money. Her friend needed new things. She wanted to move to a nicer neighborhood. She named figures in the hundreds of thousands. Of course, her friend was me. How could I not fan the flames? Daniel tossed the clinic report at Claire, his voice cold. "Look at this." After a beat, Claire sneered. "So that's why Emma can't get pregnant all these years, because you're the problem." Daniel, incredulous, sputtered, "You don't even want me to explain?" Claire's tone toward him was syrupy but lethal. "The baby isn't yours. I was with you for your money. You're not an idiot, are you? Who else but Emma would tolerate you?" Daniel lost it. "Bitch! Don't you think for a second you're getting a penny from me. We're done." "Done?" "This isn't your call," Claire said smugly. "I know you've been siphoning funds from the Lee family company. I have the proof. If you don't pay me what I want, I'll tell Emma and then you'll be the one walking away with nothing." I couldn't help laughing. Dog eats dog. This was delicious. Daniel slammed the door and stormed out. He never expected his sweet, seemingly innocent Claire to flip so fast. I happily took off my earpiece. No rush. This wasn't over yet. I messaged Chris, letting him know to comfort Claire and cozy up to her, to strengthen their bond. The door knocked. My mom walked in, carrying a plate of fruit. "Emma, have some fruit." My eyes instantly welled up. Ever since I married Daniel, I'd been running around for his whole family. Did anyone ever ask if I was hungry or thirsty? Only my parents really cared. But what had I done? I'd let a wolf into my house, ruined my father, lost my daughter. The years of pent-up frustration finally exploded. I hugged my mom and cried. She just stroked my hair silently. I had chosen to marry Daniel myself, and I'd have to bear the consequences. Soon my phone rang. It was Daniel. Usually, he'd be carefree with Claire, but now he finally remembered me. I deliberately waited a long time before answering. Daniel was sobbing on the line, begging for forgiveness, promising he'd love me properly if I gave him one more chance. I gave him a few perfunctory replies. Pretending to be hurt, he pleaded and reminisced about the past, each word a reminder of how foolish I'd been. I forced my body to stop trembling, told him I'd return in a few days, and hung up. Of course, I'd go back. The performance wasn't over. I wasn't about to leave the stage early. Chris had arranged a meeting with Claire, and she, impatient, immediately agreed. The sweetness of a woman in love is impossible to hide. I watched her, feeling not an ounce of sympathy. Since she'd slept with my husband, my friend was dead to me, and of course, Daniel couldn't be left out. Seeing the child wasn't enough. I wanted him to witness it himself. I coordinated with Chris in advance, then told Daniel to pick me up, asking him to bring my favorite cake from the local cafe. He wouldn't dare refuse. It turned out this cafe and its cake were Claire's favorites, to the same spot Chris and Claire were meeting. Daniel naturally saw their closeness and lost it. He stormed in, threatening Chris, almost making the staff call the police. Chris later told me how wild the scene was. I could imagine it perfectly. I told him to hurry Claire into asking for money. Once the deal was done, I'd settle it myself, naturally using funds from Daniel's account. When Daniel came to fetch me, there were no little cakes, just a bruised, disheveled face. As long as he suffered, I was happy. We returned home to what I once thought was a happy place. I grabbed the medicine kit, pretending to fuss over him. I told him I couldn't let go of all these years, and he begged me not to leave. I agreed. Daniel couldn't leave me, but it wasn't about me. He couldn't leave the heart group. I'd never been clearer-headed. I wouldn't be fooled again. I hadn't expected Chris to be so efficient. That night, Claire called Daniel to threaten him for money. Daniel was furious, wanting to explode, but he had no choice but to pay. He reluctantly told me there was an issue at the company and had to go handle it. I kindly reminded him to drive safely, and when he tried to kiss me, I tilted my head. "I have a cold, don't want to pass it to you." Daniel suspected nothing and drove off. Before leaving, I told him, "Come back soon. I heard something about the company, it's important." Once he left, I quickly removed the bug from the clothes he'd changed out of. I knew he'd gone to his parents' house, where his bank books were hidden a huge sum, but he was destined to be disappointed. Feeling pleased with myself, I poured a glass of red wine to soothe the insomnia caused by my anxiety. Kevin Zhao's bank passbook had vanished, and of course, he would never suspect me. After all, his parents were difficult to deal with. I barely went to their house, and I had no clue about the dirty things he was up to behind the scenes. Naturally, Kevin immediately thought of his sister, Emily Zhao. She'd always been a troublemaker, stealing things since she was a kid, constantly hanging out with shady people, completely gone off the rails. But at this point, Emily was safely out of town under my arrangements. I even gave her a new phone card and told her trainer that the program was fully closed off, no contact with the outside world allowed. Emily, dreaming of stardom, had no idea the Zhao family was already in total chaos. Unable to reach Emily, Kevin nearly lost his mind. All his years of hard work were slipping through his fingers, and the worst, he had to act all calm and collected in front of me when he returned home. I deliberately ignored his expression and casually told him some news I heard from my parents' neighborhood. I said with fake concern, "An audit team is about to enter Chen Enterprises, but don't worry, it's just a routine check, nothing to worry about." Kevin's face went pale. Thunderstruck, between Sophie Zhu breathing down his neck and a sudden audit looming over the company, it was enough to push him to the brink. I watched this scene with satisfaction and added the final straw in my sweetest voice, though, I said, feigning regret. Companies with real problems aren't always so lucky. I heard that Wang Co., right next door to my place, got reported. Turns out, there were financial irregularities. Their head got taken away, sentenced to over 20 years. I looked at Kevin's reaction, pretending to reflect. 20 years. Can you even survive that? Come out old and ruined. Sigh, his face went ghostly white, fear written all over his eyes. I asked casually, "What's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Kevin shook his head, and I carried on slicing fruit, acting nonchalant. People these days are terrifying, reporting everything, so vindictive. You really need a foolproof plan to solve all these problems. What I said may have sounded casual, but he took it seriously. If things went south, with no way out, he would go all in. I clapped my hands and set the knife on the marble coffee table. The crisp sound caught Kevin's attention. His eyes darkened. I contacted Connor, letting him know the deal was done and even sent him extra money for a trip abroad. Connor was overjoyed, agreeing immediately. Logging into the forum, as expected, Sophie Zhu started messaging me again. Online strangers tend to open up more than in real life. She said things were shifting. Her man seemed to be having second thoughts. I sneered, of course. She couldn't admit the child wasn't her boyfriend's. She asked what she should do. I spun a story about a man cornered, lashing out in revenge, even to the point of murder. I exaggerated the scenario, telling her she needed to act fast, otherwise she'd lose the money and maybe risk her life. Sophie only had me online to trust, so she would consider my advice carefully. Sure enough, early the next morning, Sophie was desperate to meet me for lunch. I took my time getting ready, applying makeup carefully, dressing elegantly, and arrived fashionably late. Sophie was visibly anxious, fidgeting. I knew exactly why Connor wasn't there yet, and she remembered Kevin Zhao's threats at the cafe. She couldn't directly ask, so she circled the topic. I heard men are under a lot of stress lately. How are you and Kevin doing? I pretended not to understand. He's fine, just busy with some audit coming up, looking into company finances. Sophie panicked. What audit? Is it serious? I nodded. Some companies collapsed from audits, and the bosses couldn't handle the pressure. Her heart sank. She understood Kevin's motivation. If he refused to give money, with evidence in her hands and old grudges, anything could happen, even murder. Didn't you notice anything odd about Kevin? Staying out all night, stuff like that. I couldn't help laughing. Wasn't that exactly what she and he used to do? I shook my head, acting casual. He's always been like that. Don't worry. She was flustered, almost in tears. Heaven may forgive, but self-inflicted disasters are unforgivable. I had zero sympathy. Sophie Zhu was reaping what she sowed, but plans must stay on track. I couldn't overplay it, though, I added. I did hear him mumbling in his sleep the other day. Something about killing, and lately he's been reading anatomy books. Quite mysterious, huh? I acted as if complaining, but Sophie was thoroughly freaked out. She probably imagined Connor had already been disposed of by Kevin Zhao. I took a satisfied sip of coffee. The rich flavor, my favorite. Even if Sophie didn't care about Connor's life, she'd care about her own. What else could she do? If I were her, I'd report Kevin and stay safe. The audit team never came. Chen Enterprises had a board. Soon, I learned from my assistant that Kevin had been anonymously reported. The company started its internal review, and Kevin was temporarily suspended. He suspected something but got no useful info. Over the next few days, Kevin was anxious, broke, and under scrutiny, his eyes were red. He looked exhausted. I even helped him relax by suggesting old TV crime dramas full of murder cases. What would a trapped animal do when cornered? I didn't need to wonder anymore. I only found out later that Kevin Zhao had kidnapped Sophie Zhu. When the police called to notify me that my husband had kidnapped her and then got into a car accident, I was utterly shocked. The crash site was extremely remote, deep in the mountains where few people went. It was the perfect place for whatever he had planned. According to the police, he had drugged and kidnapped Sophie. Halfway there, Sophie woke up and tried to grab the steering wheel, only to crash head-on into a big truck. Sophie died instantly at the scene. Kevin was rescued, but his condition was critical. The officer muttered under his breath, "All that TV watching, thinking they can pull off a murder. Ridiculous." I went to the hospital to see Kevin. They had issued a critical condition notice. He looked like a wrapped-up mummy, barely clinging to life. When he saw me, I had dressed up, looking especially beautiful just like the first time he met me, but so many years had passed, and I was no longer that naive girl. He looked at me with a mix of desperation and fury, as if he wanted to say something, but I had zero interest. I calmly told him everything, every single thing, in full detail. His eyes burned with rage, as if he wanted to leap up and kill me. But he could only twitch feebly like a fish out of water. He gasped for air, and I smiled as I said the last words, "Kevin Zhao, consider this your final debt paid, but the one thing I'll regret in my life, meeting you." Kevin stared at me, hand weakly clutching the bedsheet. The monitors began to sound alarms. I stepped out and called for the doctors. I never thought I could feel so calm just watching Kevin Zhao die. Finally, it was over. I dug out Kevin Zhao's insurance policy from the safe, something I had bought for him. Together with the money in his accounts, it was just enough to fill the gap left in Lee Corporation. Oh, and that villa Sophie Zhu was living in? It was technically under Kevin's name. He never actually gave it to her. I sold the house, moved with my parents, and settled in a quiet little town with just my shares in the company. Our family could live comfortably for the rest of our lives. The people in this town were kind and simple-hearted, and I finally found some peace here. But sometimes, I couldn't help thinking of Annie, wondering what she would have been like if she were still alive. I still believe in love. Maybe one day I'll find a new connection. Who knows what the future holds?